China's prison system is vast and shrouded in secrecy. The sheer scale of this system is staggering, with facilities spread across the country, often in remote and inaccessible areas. These prisons are designed to hold a large number of inmates, and they do so with an iron grip. It is estimated to hold millions of people, with women representing a significant, yet often overlooked, portion of this population. These women are not just numbers, they are individuals with unique stories and backgrounds. Their presence in the prison system highlights the broader issues of gender and justice in China. While reliable statistics are difficult to obtain due to the opaque nature of the Chinese government, available data suggests a growing number of women are being incarcerated. This increase can be attributed to various factors, including stricter law enforcement policies and socioeconomic conditions that disproportionately affect women. These women come from diverse backgrounds, convicted of a range of crimes from petty theft to political dissent. Some are imprisoned for nonviolent offenses, while others are political prisoners, detained for their beliefs or activism. The diversity of their crimes reflects the complex social fabric of China. Their experiences within China's carceral system, however, are often marked by harsh conditions, human rights abuses, and limited access to legal recourse. Overcrowding is a significant issue, leading to unsanitary conditions and increased tension among inmates. Solitary confinement is frequently used as a punishment, exacerbating mental health issues. The Chinese government maintains a strict policy of secrecy surrounding its prisons, particularly those housing women. This secrecy extends to the treatment of inmates, making it difficult to obtain accurate information about their conditions. Surveillance is pervasive, with security cameras monitoring every move. This lack of transparency makes it challenging for international organizations and human rights groups to monitor conditions and advocate for improvements. Efforts to investigate and report on the situation are often met with resistance, and journalists face significant risks when attempting to uncover the truth. Furthermore, the Chinese legal system operates under a different framework than many Western nations, with a greater emphasis on maintaining social order and less emphasis on individual rights. This legal philosophy prioritizes the collective over the individual, often at the expense of personal freedoms and justice. This difference in legal philosophy contributes to the harsh treatment of prisoners, including women, who are often denied basic rights and subjected to degrading treatment. Reports of mistreatment, including physical and psychological abuse, are not uncommon. Advocacy for these women is crucial yet fraught with challenges due to the restrictive environment. Life inside a Chinese women's prison is characterized by strict routines, overcrowding, and limited access to basic necessities. The daily schedule is rigidly enforced, with inmates waking up early in the morning and following a strict timetable that includes roll calls, meals, work assignments, and limited recreational time. Inmates typically spend their days engaged in forced labor, which is a significant part of their daily routine. They are often tasked with producing goods for both domestic consumption and export. These products can range from textiles and electronics to toys and other consumer goods. The work is often tedious and physically demanding, requiring long hours of repetitive tasks that can be both mentally and physically exhausting. With prisoners forced to work long hours with few breaks, the environment can be grueling. The lack of adequate rest periods exacerbates the physical strain on the inmates. Living conditions are often cramped and unsanitary, with multiple inmates sharing small cells that are not designed to accommodate so many people. These cells often lack adequate ventilation, lighting, and sanitation facilities, making the living environment harsh and uncomfortable. Food rations are often meager and of poor quality, consisting of basic staples that do not provide sufficient nutrition. This leads to malnutrition and health problems among inmates, who may suffer from a range of diet-related illnesses and deficiencies. Beyond the physical hardships, women in Chinese prisons also endure psychological suffering. The mental toll of imprisonment is significant, with many inmates experiencing depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. Isolation from the outside world, including limited contact with family and friends, exacerbates these issues. Coupled with the constant threat of punishment for even minor infractions, the psychological pressure is immense. This creates an atmosphere of fear and despair where inmates are constantly on edge, worried about potential repercussions. Access to medical care is often inadequate, with limited resources and medical staff available to address the health needs of the inmates. Mental health services are virtually non-existent, leaving many inmates without the support they need to cope with the psychological challenges of imprisonment. Women who are pregnant or breastfeeding face particular challenges, as the prison environment is not conducive to their specific needs. They often receive little to no prenatal care or support for their infants, which can have serious implications for both mother and child. The lack of basic necessities such as hygiene products, clean clothing, and adequate bedding further compounds the difficulties faced by female inmates. Coupled with the psychological strain of imprisonment, these conditions take a severe toll on the well-being of female inmates. The combination of physical, mental, and emotional hardships creates a challenging environment that significantly impacts the overall well-being of women in Chinese prisons. Forced labor is an integral part of the Chinese prison system, including women's prisons. This practice has been embedded in the penal system for decades, with prisoners being compelled to work under strict supervision. The labor is not voluntary, and refusal to participate can result in severe punishment, including solitary confinement or extended sentences. Prisoners are required to work long hours producing goods for both domestic and international markets. These products are often sold at a fraction of the cost of those produced by free labor, giving Chinese companies a competitive edge in the global market. The extensive hours and the monotonous nature of the work take a toll on the physical and mental health of the inmates. These goods range from textiles and electronics to toys and Christmas decorations. The variety of products reflects the diverse skills that prisoners are forced to acquire, often without proper training or safety measures. The lack of adequate protective gear and the high-pressure environment can lead to frequent injuries and long-term health issues. The use of forced labor not only provides a source of cheap labor for Chinese companies, but also generates significant revenue for the government. This revenue is often used to fund the prison system itself, creating a cycle where the exploitation of prisoners directly finances their continued incarceration. This economic model raises ethical questions about the true purpose of the penal system. Prisoners, however, receive little to no compensation for their work, and the conditions under which they labor are often exploitative and dangerous. The lack of fair wages and the harsh working conditions contribute to a sense of hopelessness and despair among the inmates. Many prisoners suffer from chronic fatigue and other health issues as a result of the grueling work schedules. The use of forced labor in Chinese prisons has drawn condemnation from international human rights organizations and Western governments. These groups argue that the practice is a violation of basic human rights and call for greater transparency and accountability. The international community has urged China to reform its prison labor practices and to ensure that prisoners are treated with dignity and respect. Critics argue that the practice violates international law and constitutes a form of modern-day slavery. They point to the lack of consent and the coercive nature of the labor as clear indicators of human rights abuses. The comparison to slavery highlights the severity of the issue and the urgent need for reform. Despite these criticisms, the Chinese government maintains that the work programs are designed to rehabilitate prisoners and provide them with job skills. Officials argue that the labor helps inmates develop a work ethic and prepares them for reintegration into society. They claim that the programs are beneficial for both the prisoners and the economy. However, the lack of transparency surrounding these programs, coupled with the numerous reports of abuse and exploitation, raises serious concerns about the true nature of prison labor in China. Investigations have revealed instances of physical and psychological abuse, inadequate living conditions, and a lack of medical care. These findings suggest that the primary goal of the labor programs may not be rehabilitation, but rather the economic exploitation of prisoners. Human rights abuses are pervasive within the Chinese prison system, and women are particularly vulnerable to such abuses. Reports from former prisoners and human rights organizations document widespread instances of torture, sexual violence, and forced abortions and sterilizations. Women who speak out against these abuses or attempt to report them face retaliation, including solitary confinement, beatings, and denial of medical care. The culture of impunity within the prison system allows these abuses to continue unchecked, with little to no accountability for perpetrators. The Chinese government has consistently denied allegations of human rights abuses within its prisons. However, the sheer volume of credible reports from former prisoners, human rights groups, and international organizations paints a disturbing picture of systemic abuse. The lack of independent oversight of prisons, coupled with the government's tight control over information, makes it difficult to obtain accurate figures on the prevalence of abuse. However, the available evidence suggests that human rights violations are widespread and deeply concerning.